for Monday, March 14th, 2016. Council, we have an agenda in front of us. A motion to adopt the agenda would be in order.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. And we have minutes from the special meeting of council from February 23rd, 2016 at 2 p.m. A motion to adopt those minutes as circulated would be in order.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have some correspondence from the Western Vancouver Island Industrial Heritage Society. And it's an email dated March the 10th, 2016, requesting $20,000 in capital funding to install a heat pump and to upgrade the pedestrian pathway at Mclain Mill National Historic Site. And City Manager, are you able to speak to this?
Mr. Mayor, we had a visit with the IHS board last week, and they brought this document that you see attached to the agenda. There had been a $20,000 item in the spreadsheet, the draft or potential projects list, $20,000 in response to an ask from IHS that didn't have, council felt there wasn't detail attached to that ask. And so we got back to IHS, asked them for detail. They provided that detail if council wishes to reconsider that item.
Okay, so I see Jan LaVirtue here in case you have any questions. I'm assuming that's why you're here, Jan. Yeah, it's a very interesting graphic there with the Mclain Mill entrance. Thank you for doing that. If I remember correctly, that was in the original plan?
That's correct.
And it hasn't, that's what you're hoping to accomplish, right?
Right. You can see on the drawings on the right-hand side with the original drawings from the original concept from Mclain's Mill. And currently, right now, you have to walk down the service road to have access to the mill. We're trying to basically go back to finish off what wasn't initially done to create a proper pathway to the mill.
Right.
So that's the big ask there.
And there'd be some trees that would have to move?
So there's no trees that have to be removed, which is great. There's already kind of a dedicated pathway through there. It needs to be scrubbed and it needs, base and stuff. So it actually will cost more than $10,000 to build that, but we do have some in-kind services from people with excavating equipment and stuff like that to be able to help out. So it's not, it's more than a $20,000 project, but the $10,000 was about half of what it would cost us to build that. The other ask is the $10,000 for the heat pump. I was out there the other day and a couple weeks ago, and we just had the propane refilled up there. And to heat that one building, the main hall, was $400 for 1 month. And so propane is definitely, as you well know, is one of the biggest expenses that we have out there at the mill. Bill Collette and myself are working towards finding funding to be able to figure out ways to get natural gas out there. It's only about 1.5 kilometers away, so these are just some of the steps to try and improve the efficiencies for running that mill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the propane is extremely expensive and difficult to.
So the $20,000 is, half of it is for the path and the other half is for the heat pump for efficiencies. There's a savings of over $300 a month, net savings of $300 a month by changing over to the heat pump. So huge. And also currently there is no air conditioning in the main hall. So if there was rentals in the summertime and stuff like that, sometimes it can get hot in there. With the heat pump, at least we'll have the accessibility to have some air conditioning as well.
So that heat pump would just be for the main building?
That's correct. The other two smaller buildings are run off a little wall heater, electric wall heater, so
I see.
Don't draw very much.
Okay. Council questions for Jen? Any further clarification? Councillor Paulson?
This is more around staff discussion. Is this line item number 62 on our worksheet? Changed from 20 to 30,000 K at the February 23rd budget meeting.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, Teresa Kingston's in the room, maybe she could step to the mic and respond to that question.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, Hugh Grist is in the room now too, if you want to hear from him.
Okay.
Line number 62 is the capital funds for Mclain Mill. That was originally 25,000 and increased to 30,000, and that's the contribution from ACRD. I'm just trying to find where. There were 2 items that you considered at your last meeting, and I'm just trying to find out where they are in here. One of them was the approximate $13,000 for the matching grant with Parks Canada, and the other was the $20,000 that Mr. Grist had done in his presentation when IHS presented their budget.
Okay, so the 13,000 is line 65, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yes.
line 70, Mr. Mayor.
Line 70? That says multiplex canopy. Oh. Do you know where the other $20,000 is?
So I'm confused between 62 and 65.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I might be able to shed some light on that.
Okay.
So 62, I'm looking at an older document, and 62 shows a $30,000 piece for Industrial Heritage Society. But in the notes section, it says that it was changed from a previous 20,000 to 30,000.
Okay,
And that was
that's it then.
That was
Yeah.
changed as a point of discussion.
Okay.
And then I think the intent was to combine it with the 13,000 that you see on
Line 65?
line 65, that's correct.
Okay.
And that,
Sorry,
so,
yeah.
yeah, we're good?
There, it was approved before, I'm just trying to find what the numbers are.
Yes.
Yeah, at the last meeting, there was on the, we made a motion to combine it, and the council decided not to combine it with the other one, but to come and get a more specific
Okay.
request for this 20. And quite frankly, it'll save enough money that I'd make the motion that we grant that on the budget.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
So, sorry, Councillor Mcclain, are you granting the 30,000? Is that your motion?
The 20 that's requested here.
Oh, the 20 that's
We did try to combine it at the last meeting, and council asked more specific details, and that's what they're here doing.
Okay. Okay, and it's been moved and seconded. And Hugh, did you have anything more that you wanted to add to this? No, I think Okay.
I think he's done a good job. But the old furnace is 18 years old, and it still stays there. We've had 7 burners, now there's only 5 left, but we'll still keep it as a backup because the heat pumps don't work below -7 degrees. So
Right.
you always want heat when it's very cold.
Yeah.
So it'd be ideal to put the heat pump in and conserve that furnace. And the trails, well, as Jan says, it's a lot more than $10,000, but we'll do what we can with the volunteer labor and other equipment.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Council? Councillor Sauvé?
Yeah, just before we vote, City Council in the past has pretty much tried and let the Mclain Mill run by itself with the budget, and we keep on cutting on a budget. I think this is the year that we need to start encouraging, especially with the new formed of the committee, to help them out, last big punch, get what we need to get this going, because that's pretty much one of the top 5 heritage that we have in our city. So I just encourage council to support this.
Councillor Paulson?
So just to clarify, line item number 62, we're reducing that from 30 to 20?
Who are you asking?
Anybody who has the answer?
Anybody who has the answer.
Thank you.
Well, it was changed from 20 to 30 at the February 23rd budget meeting,
Yeah.
so we would have to have a motion to change it back. Councillor Mclain.
I think the line item that's being referred to here is, as Teresa Kingston said, is the money from the regional district, which I do not know why it's in our budget. That's my question on that one.
Because it flows through our budget in terms of being paid to. So line 23 is the Mclain Mill capital budget that was approved initially a long time ago. It was 25,000 from the ACRD, increased to 30,000. Line 62 is the 30,000 that was increased, and line 65 is the 13, the matching there. So what I've heard you say, or what the request was for 20,000, so that line 62 would be 20,000. And so then in this budget, there's 3 line items that have been approved for Mclain Mill.
23 is still 30,000.
It is still 30,000. Hugh. Okay,
No, actually, sorry, I'm thoroughly confused.
so I don't know
Somehow
if, so what
magically we
could
just
happen
got
is, I don't know if I have the same sheets that you do. I have the one that's 3.61%. Okay. So if you look at page, line 23,
Okay, I can't go that fast. Just bear with me.
yeah.
Line 23. Okay,
Mclain Mill capital projects, that's the funded from ACRD. In the original budget, it's 25,000. ACRD is increasing it to 30,000, and that you've approved. Okay?
okay, but that's
So
not coming, is that coming out of our budget or not?
It comes out of our budget. ACRD writes the check to us. We write the check to the IHS, and that has to do with the agreement that we have with the IHS.
Okay,
Okay? Then you go to line 62.
yes.
So when Mr. Griss made his presentation to council back then, there was a request for 20,000 and the 13,694, that is line 65. At your last budget meeting, you approved the 13,694, which is line 65. Somehow the 20,000 went up to 30,000. And now what's being requested from IHS is the 20,000, which was their original request during their budget presentation.
We should have kept quiet over there and keep writing it up, eh?
So pretty much the only
City
correction we
manager.
would have is 62.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add a further piece of clarity, Ms. Kingston outlined 3 items in this document, 2 of which have yeses next to them in this draft document. So you've pre-approved, if you like, the ACRD through and through money,
Yes.
the matching grant money. Right now, there's a no next to this line that you're considering. So you need to know that you're talking about changing it from 30 to 20, and you need to know that even if you do that, it's still a no in this document. So you need to reconsider that if you want to,
So if we pass this motion, the N will change to a Y and the 30 will change to a 20.
if that's your intent.
Okay. I don't think I'm quite as confused as I was 5 minutes ago.
It's juggling.
Okay. On the motion, all those in favor? Carried. And I like the part that it says outside agency, which means we don't have to pay for it, am I right? I'm looking at you, Jake. This is your document. Scott, thank you for turning it down. I feel like I'm roasting. All right. Anything else on the, for the Western Vancouver Island Industrial Heritage Society? Yes, Director of Finance, thank you.
Just to add a bit more clarification. Sorry about that. The outside agency only means it refers to the IHS. We will be paying for that 20,000.
Okay,
It's important.
thank you. But 10,000 less than we were paying, right? Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Then, Council, we're moving on to D, reports for the draft 5-year financial plan. Just before I turn this over to the city manager for his update, I want to say that I'm hoping that in today's meeting we will pretty well finalize what we're going to be doing with this financial plan, and we're probably almost finished. But I see Councillor Mcclemon's hand going up. Councillor Mclain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a good idea, but I personally will have a problem voting to finalize anything until we have the 2015 actual. I don't need the audited actual, but just the actual, the same, similar ideas we got at the ACRD.
Right.
And that was sometime in March, and we're still in March, I admit that.
Yeah, but what I'm referring to is I'm hoping we're not going to have too many more surprises in terms of additions or subtractions to the budget. Okay. City manager, could you please bring us up to speed? Noticing that the percentage increase is now at 3.02, I guess a little bit less than that now.
Mr. Mayor, just to recap, we've been through, as council's very aware, we've been through a series of budget meetings and heard presentations from department heads. Council's taken considerable input from public, even in a public session, at these public meetings, online, with a survey. And we find ourselves at this meeting where, as you said, we're hoping to finalize a budget document that can begin to go through the process of approval, which triggers funding, taxation bylaws, and a timeline that we have to adhere to. So when we broke off the last public budget meeting, we were in our running total spreadsheet. We were at I think a 3.65% increase on residential taxation, single-family residential. Since then, there have been several things, a couple of emerging issues or emerging items, I guess, staff's been working on, and then the new one that you just dealt with right now. So where we sit right now, at the start of this meeting, we sit at 3.02, and we're just trying to get this document up. We're having a bit of a technological glitch here. So we sit at a 3.02 draft budget. That's a 3.02 increase on residential taxation. And we just added in $20,000 for IHS, so that will bring that up a little bit when we get to plug that in. Some other issues that have emerged that will bring that number down include $25,000 reduction in, we had a line item for an appraisal fee for city-owned property, and it's a requirement of our insurer, and our insurers have not pressed us on that issue, and we're comfortable, staff's comfortable deleting that from the budget and not undertaking an appraisal on our assets this year. If you have questions about that, I would defer those to Director Rothwell.
Which line number are you talking about?
Sorry? Line 91, and that's not in the budget spreadsheet, is it? Or is it? 91 in the city budget, or in this? Okay. Thank you. Line 91 in the summary spreadsheet. Another item that has emerged is Municipal Finance Authority has recalculated the city's interest, primarily on the RCMP building, and we expect a $50,000 decrease in interest. We expect a $50,000 decrease in interest on that loan this year, so we can lower that budget line, and I'll defer to Director Rothwell. Is that in a line in that document? Okay. Do you know where it is on the interest? 90, thank you. And the last emerging item is that council will recall we talked about the demolition of the old bottle depot building, and staff's done some very good work on that, finding ways to dispose of the material, primarily dispose of the material at no cost, and that budget item is down now from $50,000 to $20,000, so there's a $30,000 reduction. That comes from land sales, so it's not right off the taxation piece, but it's still city money saved. So those are some things that you'll find in that new document that bring it down to 3.02. A couple other items that you may want to discuss. One is that we talked about the sidewalk project on Johnson Road. There's potential that we could move that project, $65,000 of that project from general taxation to gas taxes, gas reserve. And that would reduce the $65,000 on the taxation portion of the budget. Another item that council had indicated they wanted a reduction in gas tax reserve expenditures on trail building and capping. And so that has been done. But we told you that some of the trail that we built last year might need capping to preserve it from being eroded or that sort of thing. And so we've got a price from our Parks Department at $13,650 for trail capping. And that would be capping trail that we've already built in previous years. So we would look for council's direction on that. And Mr. Mayor, there might be other items council wants to talk about.
Okay, and yeah, I have a couple, but Councillor Sauvé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After reviewing how our taxpayers are going to be affected in their taxes, item number 85, which you already spoke about, the Johnson Road sidewalk, that was one question I had. If being a streetscape, that the fact if it could go to gas tax. So you're telling me that we can take it out of the gas tax fund? And if so, I would like to settle this right now. It's for $65,000, which is 0.52% of our tax.
Mr. Mayor, yes, we can take that from gas tax fund. And we need to be mindful that we are drawing money down from our reserves. Our reserves are low, and gas tax is one of those. But there is room for us to take this project from gas tax.
Okay, so do you,
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that the Johnson Road sidewalk extension in Mirror Street be not coming out from the capital projects general revenue, but through the gas tax.
okay, is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Alemany?
Just wondering what the replenishment rate on the gas tax fund is.
Mr. Mayor, that's might be a complex question. If we could maybe, do you want to hear that answer now, or do you want to have that conversation a little later?
Well, we might as well hear it now if you know the answer, but I do believe we had about just over $200,000 for 2016, and then there's a similar amount for 2017. Am I right?
We have a lot of projects planned for 17 and 18.
Yeah.
And so anything we can put this project in 16 and still be balanced for 17 and 18. If we do anything further in gas taxes, we're going to have to move some projects out of 17 or 18 because it'll put us into a deficit base at the end of 18.
But we can do it for 2016.
We can do this without moving projects, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that? So on the Councillor Mcclain?
Yeah, just curious, are we going to be going through this document basically again, like now, this 5-year financial plan? The reason I'm asking is there may be some other things that we might want to put or take or something, and if the gas tax is being depleted quickly, we may, I don't care where money comes from. Money's money, and it's taxes one way or another, but just we may want to see the whole total picture as we vote on it, that's all.
Yeah, I have a question for city engineer that it will definitely impact on what your question is too. So, but let's deal with this motion right now. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions? So then on the motion to take the sidewalk extension out of gas tax, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll have a question. Go ahead, City Manager.
If you don't mind, the other item I brought up to you was the trail capping, $13,650 from gas tax reserves.
Right. And we haven't brought it down to zero yet. There's still going to be money left in gas tax to cover that?
There's room there.
Okay. Certainly, to me, it makes sense if we've invested in the trail and it needs to be capped to save it from erosion. That does make sense to me. Otherwise, we're going to be, having a bigger repair bill and, potential pollution into the streams down below.
Would you like a motion on that, Mr. Mayor?
I think we're going to need a motion on that one.
I'm prepared to make that motion that we move that item to the gas tax.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McClellan?
How much is left in the gas tax?
Mr. Mayor, I'll call Director Rothwell to the table here. Mr. Mayor, at the end of 2016, there'd be about $500,000 left in gas tax reserves. That money is heavily subscribed in 2017 and again in 2018. So the money we spend now puts pressure on those years that draw it down. And if we go any further in gas taxes this year, we're going to have to move projects out in 17 or 18.
But the 500,000, is that divvied out to the city so much per year, or is it sitting there as one big pot?
Gas tax pays us roughly $750,000 a year, and what we do is earmark it for the projects, and we have the 5-year plan set up, so we will be using all of the funding, but there is flexibility in moving the projects as according to priority, whichever, because of course we haven't committed to projects in 2017, 2018, except for one that's dependent on some grant funding.
But just to underscore, you're comfortable that if we move this $13,000 and take it out of the gas tax, we're okay going forward?
Yes.
Okay.
We do bear interest on them, on the funds as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other comment? Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, just so I'm clear, so we get approximately 750 or maybe exactly 750,000 a year. We've got 500 in there now, but for the next 5 years, there's been some projects. Well, this year there was very few infrastructure projects I noticed in the budget. So is that where the others are coming from that I noticed that were in the future years?
Yeah, the bulk, quite a lot of the gas tax funds are earmarked for 2017 and 2018. So that would deplete anything that we're getting in at the end of 2018.
So, but we're earmarked to get 750,000 each year, or is there a termination to that program?
No, it's every year until I think 2025.
2025.
2024.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good for 10 years.
Okay. Councillor Paulson?
This probably still circles around the gas tax and what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. And one project that is on this year's docket is Victoria Key Bridge deck rehab. And I see it comes out of general capital. Is that something that would qualify under the gas tax or carbon tax?
It wouldn't qualify for carbon tax, and bridge construction or rehabilitation is normally allowed under the gas tax rules.
Would we have funds under the gas tax to do that this year?
Would that be the 100,000?
Roughly 100,000.
That would involve moving some projects in 2017 to 2018. They domino out, because if you use it up this year,
Right.
then
It just may be a project, and Guy, maybe you can comment, but it may be a project that if we spend some money now to do that project, if something drastic happens to that bridge, it could increase that cost to $200,000 or $300,000 instead of 80 to 100 this year. Just speculating. So,
well, I'll defer that to the city engineer.
thank you.
City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, when council's done with this motion on trail capping, you may want to turn your minds to the Victoria Key Bridge, and the city engineer does have some comments on that. And just so you know, if we spend money, we have $500,000 in gas tax reserves this year, left this year. We're going to expend that over the next 2 years on top of what we earn. So
Right.
Anything more that we put into the next 2 years, 3 years, 16, 17, or 18, it means that we're going to have to push something else out, which is not unusual. So we would want to hear from the engineer, certainly, if a bridge is a priority, then we need to push something else out after this motion.
Yeah. One of my questions for him is about that sort of thing. Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and I'm not saying I do, was not the Victoria Key Bridge down for next year or the year after in the capital plan? And if it was, then if we bring it up here and save some money, I think that would be good, as we have had that discussion, and that's something we'll have to talk about in a few minutes, I'm sure. But I just didn't want to put things out there and all of a sudden, whoopsie, we got nowhere to go. And that's why I asked the question.
Right. Okay, on the motion then, all those in favor of the $13,000 for capping coming out of gas tax? Opposed? Carried. Okay, city engineer, my question to you is just hypothetical question, but are there projects that, or is there a project that we have slated and have temporarily approved for 2016 that you would be comfortable deferring to 2017?
Mr. Mayor, I thought I identified that project last time, and that was the Anderson Avenue, Maitland to Wallace Street. That had pavement, sanitary, and storm, and that was the one that I said, and you know, that totals up to over 300,000, and that's the one that we're going to move out. So I've looked pretty deep to answer that question already. If you take a look at the projects you have left, there's barely 400,000 in paving works, which is, we've never spent that amount in 25 years that I've been here. And there's a small amount in storm drains, and that's an area that we really do have to start thinking of spending a lot more money on in the future. So I could take maybe a storm drain project out, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's pretty skinny as the way it is now, right?
Okay, I'm not. Did we approve the Anderson Avenue piece? I didn't think we had anyway. So.
Yeah, no, we approved not to approve it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Just, asking the question, because I know that a lot of the money that we've put out is for your department, and I'm just, wanting to make sure, wanting to know what our options are.
Yeah, and I just want to remind you that, we're underfunding our roads projects significantly, and the storm sewers are, that separation and that liquid waste management planning around separating our stormwater is pretty valuable too. So that's kind of where we sit.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, council?
Well, I guess while the engineer's there, I noticed we've still got $15,000 in the Victoria Key for looking at it. My understanding after the conversation we had with the contractor, I don't think we need that $15,000. Do you have any report back from the
Contract.
I can't remember the name of the company, but the contractor that Frank's in charge of, you and I and Ron and Councillor Polson were talking to about the job, and how much it would cost, and can we still repair it by putting in those struts?
Mr. Mayor, there was a field visit with Councillor Paulson and Councillor Mcclain and myself and Wilf Takamar, our street superintendent, to take a look at our bridges, one at Victoria Key and the other one at Gertrude Street Bridge. And we had a good, frank conversation with our bridge contractor, K&G Construction, and in fact, I'll bring us to our field visit to Victoria Key Bridge, where we were underneath the bridge, taking a look at the work that needs to be done. There's the top deck is separated from the girders, so there's some deflection going in from the top deck and the girder. So that's moving up and down, and that's causing the panels to crack and delaminate with the rebar in it, right? So the project that we've identified, and this is really just the first phase of the work that needs to be done to Victoria Key Bridge, but it's to attach that deck panel to the girders there. And the bridge contractor felt $100,000 would do the job. I have spoke with him since, and he hasn't done a further analysis of that, but he did say that he'd be comfortable within that amount. So that would be one part of the work that needs to be done on Victoria Keep Bridge, without doing a lot of work in identifying the costs. There could be another $200,000 in the future to work on that bridge. But this is what Councillor Mcclain is referring to in terms of will the 100 do the job? And there's $15,000 for assessment. So essentially there's $115,000. Well, there's a potential 100 more, but right now there's just $15,000 toward that bridge.
Is this something that needs to be done imminently this year?
My assessment is that it's not going to get any better, because it is moving. You can just see that deflection, the separation, the cracks have occurred on the deck, and it's not going to get any better. It's something that could be done as an independent project. Like, it's not going to affect the other work that we have to do in the future. Like, the remaining work will be around resurfacing the bridge, the concrete deck surface for the remaining panels, and any other work that's been identified there. But we have identified that job last year, and we were going to delay it another year. But if we choose to do that main piece this year, I think it would be a good thing to do.
So I'm just conscious of what Councillor Mcclain said, which is it's in the plan to be done next year, 2017. Am I right?
No.
Is it in the plan to be done at any point in the next 3 years?
It's not documented, but it's definitely in the plan to do it. But Mr. Mayor, I've had that experience under budgeting. Gertrude Street Bridge is a situation where I thought $250,000 was going to do it,
right?
And it's not going to do it. And I will be coming back shortly with another report to identify some other works around that particular bridge. So I haven't done that rough estimating that I think we would like to have in the budget for next year. But no, there isn't any money in the budget that I'm aware of for 2017 for Victoria Bridge.
I thought that was the question I just asked. Is it next year? And you said yes.
No.
Okay, so what I worry about is if we don't do something about it now, will it be significantly more expensive down the road?
The deterioration between now and the time that we do decide to do the work, there'll be more work associated with that. I can't predict the amount that'll be in addition to, but by and large, the bridge needs some serious deck work, and part of that is attaching the deck to the girder.
Councillor Paulson.
I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, but in our discussion with the contractor who's working on the Gertrude Street Bridge, one of the consequences that we run even just on that one bridge section, and it could happen tomorrow or it could happen next year or the year after, but we may wind up in a situation if the cracking continues that it goes down actually to the sub-layer. And if we get to that point, this particular $100,000 project for that deck session, his guesstimate would become $200,000 or $300,000 because you've got to take everything out of there. And it's more of a changing the oil before the mileage needs to be done on your car. And that's kind of the impression I got. It's not a definite risk, but it was a preferred opinion that he gave that if we don't pay attention to this particular project could cost us 2 to 3 times as much, and preventative maintenance is better than proactive or reactive maintenance. And that's kind of the gist I got from this, and that's kind of why I have the warning bell in the back of my head that, maybe this should be done, and it could save, it could be a third of the cost if we wind up in a larger repair situation, if you will, so.
Okay.
And it would be longer, too. It would take, that bridge would be closed for a longer period of time.
Right. Councillor Mcclain, then Councillor Sauvé.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make a motion that we include the Victoria Key Bridge up to a maximum of $100,000 in this year, whether it comes from gas tax or regular. If I have a seconder, we can debate it. I think we're talking about it, so let's get a motion on the floor and say yes or no.
Okay.
So my reason is that specifically, like Councillor Polson said, we were down looking at the Gertrude Street Bridge and feel that, you know, because I guess we kind of wanted to know why the extra costs and so on that we keep bidding on and voting on. And I hear there's some more coming, which is frustrating, but that's another subject. But when we were talking about the Victoria Key Bridge, we discovered some things, and we went and looked ourselves and found ourselves being bounced up and down on the bridge every time a truck went over it. And Ron kind of got off it and started laughing at me going up and down, but other than that, it was entertaining time. So, and when we did talk to the contractor, we felt it could be done for probably 80, but you know, save having to come back. I would make a motion for a maximum of 100,000. If it can't be done for that, then I would suggest then we may as well wait till next year because the price has already waited too long.
Thank you. Councillor Sauvé.
I don't know if I'm the only one on council here that's totally confused as cost of building and especially with the Gertrude Bridge fiasco. And it's no disrespect to Councillor Paulson and Mclain, but talking to the guy that's on site for the site manager, as a councilman, I want to hear from my city engineer as to tell me specific numbers. This is what we need to know. That fine, there was an error done for the Gertrude Bridge, but we could learn from those mistakes. But before I want to move ahead, I would like more information, and I would like to hear more from our city engineer. And I know he wasn't expecting this talk this morning, or maybe he was, but I'd rather see him more prepared to answer us. And I know we're dealing with the budget, but we're going to be hit with another 100 grand or more for a Gertrude Bridge. I just don't want this to happen for this one. I absolutely, well, the thing is, it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. We got an expert on staff, and I trust the experts' planning and decision making on that, because he's the one that refers to us for us to accept the money. Personally, I would rather wait and have a report on number one, the Gertrude Bridge expansion, what happened. Number two, about the Victoria Key Bridge and what he thinks, using safety and all sorts of things, what would be the best approach to getting this done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Minions, then Councillor Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to see this project included in the budget, and that doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it. We can wait for a report from the engineer still on costs and further plans, but I'd like to see us put it into the budget so that there's money there for it if the engineer feels it needs to be done this year. I'm concerned about the rate that we're funding our roads and sanitary sewer at, and I think this would be a good project if it is one that could get a lot more expensive down the road. It'd be good to have the money in there for it, and we can decide at a later date if we 100% need to do it or not right away. Thank you.
Councillor Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Sauvé. I think that we do need a lot more information before we can go ahead and approve something that you know, in the past we've been burned on aiming pretty low and not having a full idea of what's there. Now, we already have $15,000 on a report to try to get a better idea of presumably what the Victoria Key Bridge needs. You know, I think that's still the best way to go as far as trying to figure that out. If we want to put this into the budget so that we have it there as a line item and we know it's, you know, kind of there in the back of our minds, I'm fine with that. But I think we can't decide on it today. So,
City engineer, what I'm wondering, if something like this comes up at some other point in the year, let's suppose it comes up in July or August, or once the budget has been approved, under the normal course of things, would you defer some project because this has somehow taken priority? Is that the way you would have handled it in the past?
If there's an unusual item that pops up during the year,
Right.
like you say, we would consider all types of avenues to take. Certainly, one would be postponing another project to fit this one in, or allocating funds from contingency. We would consider all different avenues in a situation like that.
So it's not like it couldn't be handled if for some reason we didn't approve it. There'd be a way of dealing with it if something like this came about as an emergent issue?
Well, we're not going to know whether it's an emergent. This is a situation that we know the bridge is failing. Like it's going to be an emergency thing. What you're referring to is a situation where it's just out of the blue, right? So I wouldn't expect that we would need to come back. Like if we're going to take the risk that the bridge is going to further deteriorate for that other year of pounding, well, then we just take that risk, and we would use that $15,000 to get a better assessment of what work needs to be done. But I could point out that because we are going into this a little bit uncertain. I'm supportive of the work that we do, but I could commit to before we did any work on that bridge is to get a further assessment from the contractor and kind of put a preliminary report together on the bridge, because we don't want to find ourselves in that situation where we're trying to make up ground, right? And yeah, so I think we could do that if you choose to allocate the budget, and then I'll come back. I won't be spending any money on that budget until I have a little bit of a better sense of the work ahead. And on that note, I'd like to correct myself because I did come up with a number for Victoria Quay Bridge a year or so ago, and that $200,000 I had budgeted is in the budget under Works Other for 2017. Councillor Mcclain is right. It is in Works Other 2017 for $200,000, but that's not a good number. In a sense, it's a marker for that project until we can get a better assessment, which is why we're going to do the $50,000 to assess it.
Okay, so I think you understand that council is wanting to support you and support the infrastructure. We're just trying to come to the best decision that we can make today. It's not that we're saying no, it's not. We don't want it to happen. It's just what do you want? What's best in terms of your department, and what can we do that best supports what you need to do?
Yeah, and I would support the $100,000 for phase 1 of Victoria Quay Bridge. That will allow us to budget properly for the phase 2. I hope we can just do it in 2 phases. But yeah, I think that would be good, and I would come back with a better assessment of the project to give you a little bit more sense of the work required and what's ahead before we spend anything of that $100,000.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you with the infrastructure. We got to keep hammering at that, but I'd really rather complete one bridge before we start another one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson.
This is just another bit of comment on that particular bridge compared to a couple of other bridges. When we were doing kind of our field trips, it carries different traffic than Gertrude Street Bridge does. And I don't know what a loaded logging truck weighs, but there was a loading logging truck went over that bridge, and Councillor Mcclain was probably bouncing 6 to 8 inches off the deck when that happened. There's a number of loaded gravel trucks that went across while we were there. So just a snapshot that the industrial heavyweight type traffic that goes across that bridge is substantial. And now I understand why those bridges take a beating. And then, I mean, we can talk about the one by the Barclay as well in another conversation. But anyway, and I would rather have that bridge project myself done now and in this spring than have it shut down in July and August when we have industrial traffic at its heaviest. So I'm just kind of thinking around timeliness, and the bridge will have to be closed down at least to one lane, maybe both lanes for a period of time. So we need to think about the timing in the year as well. So I'm not trying to put pressure on the project. I'm just saying it takes a pounding, that bridge, and I was surprised because I drove over it and you never think twice.
Councillor Mcclain and then Councillor Alberni.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think, and I absolutely, I can understand Councillor Sauvé and Alberni concern about, getting more information. We had a lot of information theoretically in the Gurgis Street Bridge, and it hasn't stopped all kinds of increases in costs. So that was why my motion was to a maximum of $100,000. Because if we can't do it for that price now, it's going to be 2 or 3 next year anyway, and we wouldn't be saving anything maybe because it's already too late. So if it's not too late, I say, and I'm with Councillor Polson on this, let's do it quickly, because tourism's coming and we don't want a bridge down for extra weeks. If it's done quickly in the quick dry season, April, early May, then it can be done and not down so long that we causing ourselves trouble when we want our tourists in town. Anyway, that's the last I'll say, Mr. Mayor, but
Thank you.
I think the 100,000.
And Councillor Alberni, you're the last one on this topic, so make it good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Paulson actually made a great argument just now, I think, for looking at industrial route and actually determining where our industrial traffic goes. Maybe it shouldn't be going over the Victoria Quay Bridge, and maybe it should be going over Highway 4 more than our small bridges. So there's that issue. But in general, I think we shouldn't rush into any project, and especially projects as potentially surprising as bridge projects. So I still support the $15,000.
So you support the 15,000, but you're not supporting the 100,000, is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jake, what's the motion?
The staff is directed to include up to $100,000 for the Victoria Quay Bridge.
All right. So on the motion.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
One point of clarification I'd ask is whether that is just coming from gas tax, that you mentioned potentially gas tax, but also just general capital. I wasn't clear on that point.
Okay, thank you. Director of Finance?
I believe the city engineer said that he would move some projects around if the bridge was a higher priority.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
That was in reference to the gas tax funding portion of it, right? The funding portion is yeah.
So is this coming from gas tax? Is that what
It could come from gas.
It could come from gas tax. City manager?
But I'm not
Mr.
aware
Mayor,
of
I'll echo those comments. The project, we propose that it would come from gas tax reserves, and that a project in 17 or 18 would be moved out to accommodate that budget-wise, which is not unusual to do.
Okay.
And I think the engineer is recommending that we undertake this work this year.
Okay, and none of us is saying anything other than we want to make sure that we put whatever we can into infrastructure. No one is saying anything different than that. We want to be clear. Okay, on the motion. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, city engineer. Hope we didn't put you on the hot seat too much. Yes, he's flexible. He's used to this. Okay. Thank you. Anything else, council, on our draft 5-year financial plan? All right. Then this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for questions from the public. And since the public is also the press, there, and his head is down, I guess he's not asking any questions. Then we move on to F, council review and direction. Council, we need, there's a motion, a suggested motion there, council direction regarding the 2016-2020 5-year financial plan. Councillor Sauvé?
I'm prepared to make the motion that the Council City of Port Alberni directs staff to prepare 2016 to 2020 5-year financial plan bylaw for introduction and 3 readings at the regular meetings on March the 29th, 2016.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, in discussion, Director Rothwell, we were talking about residential tax. What are the implications for commercial tax or business tax on this? I'm not sure if that's a fair question, but it's still something that occurs to me. Does it go up in tandem with residential, or is it at a different rate? Okay. Thank you. Okay. But it's more or less pegged to inflation. Yes. Okay, thank you. So on the motion, all those sorry, Councillor Mclain?
Yeah, prior to, I'm not in favor of this until I've seen the 2015 actual, so I know what I'm comparing.
When would that be available?
We were told March, and March is still here, so I'm not pestering just yet.
Yeah.
But that's something we've been talking about, and I know it can't be the audited one. I'm quite well aware of that. But to me, it'd be the comparative what the ACRD gave us with the 2015 actual as far as they know.
Okay, but you understand we do have to give direction to staff to get going on this.
But I'm still not going to hang out on it until I know.
Yeah. Okay. City Manager, question to you. If we don't approve this now, what's the implication?
Mr. Mayor, at the end of today's meeting, we're caught up to our timeline. And so we've been on time throughout the process, and we've had ample time for extra meetings if we needed them. That time is no longer ample. So if council's not ready to adopt this budget, at the motion you're considering, we would want to have another special meeting prior to the first reading. So we don't want to be jamming ourselves up in terms of our regular council meetings. So we begin our timeline at our next public meeting. So if you want, if council wants to reconsider this before March 29th, we should have at least one more meeting in this format.
Okay, I'm not sure if that necessarily answers Councillor McClemon's question.
When can we have the figures for 2015 actual? That's all.
When I was asked about that at a previous council meeting, I did indicate if everything went really well at the end of March. Things aren't going that well. I did run off a draft, and we were $1 million to surplus, but as I say, that's a draft.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Minions?
So I'm just curious, do you have an expected time frame on that? Because as much I want to get this process started, I'm happy with the budget as it sits, but I do think that a part of, approving this budget should be at least having a look at what we spent last year to make sure what we've budgeted for this year is reasonable. So I know we have to do, our readings of the bylaw. Is it going to be doable to see those numbers before we complete that, or is it going to be like end of April? Just if you have an idea, it would be helpful.
It's not physically possible to have actuals to you by the time that we need to go to adoption of the 5-year plan.
Okay, so then it sounds like we need to proceed regardless. But before we finalize at the end of April, will we have the actuals?
I expect to have the actuals definitely by the end of April. I want to reassure council that the audit committee does look at everything quarterly. And I do look at the financials at the end of the year, and operations are looking okay.
Okay.
So if there's anything glaring, I would have talked to Tim, our city manager, we would have talked to department heads, we would have talked to council. And it would have showed up in the audit committee statements as well. I mean, not all the entries are done, but it's pretty normal the way it looks right now. And I'm not expecting anything out of the ordinary.
Okay, thank you. So, has this been moved and seconded? Yes. Okay. Anything else, council? Then on the motion, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Okay, council, that was the last thing we needed to do. A motion to adjourn is in order.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.